Lord Sidebottom and the Quicksilver Quandary by Jon Cronshaw. In the hallowed recesses of my workshop, amongst the labyrinthine sprawl of gears, cogs and levers, lay the epitome of my intellectual prowess, a steam-powered exoskeleton. It wasn't merely brilliant, it was a sublime tribute to the boundless horizons of human ingenuity. As the clock in the corner resounded its 9th toll of the morning, I realized that this intricate marvel was the key to unshackling mankind from the rigors of physical labor, forever altering the course of history. Just as I mused on the quandary of how to introduce my creation to the world, the postman's knock echoed through the halls of Sidebottom Manor. I exchanged a knowing glance with my automated butler, Alexander, the product of a year's fevered tinkering. He was a decent sort, albeit prone to the occasional flounce. With a hissing of steam and a mechanical whir, he lumbered over to the door and returned with an ornate envelope. The gilt crest upon the crimson wax seal shone in the lamplight, a soaring eagle clutching a wrench in its talons, the insignia of the Royal Society of Unparalleled Inventors, the esteemed assembly that constituted the crème de la crème of Britain's inventive minds. You are cordially invited to the annual exhibition of extraordinary inventions. The invitation continued with details, the venue, the time, and a list of guest speakers that read like a veritable who's whom of scientific grandeur. But what truly caught my eye was the closing note. Inventors are encouraged to bring their latest innovations to display. The gears in my mind whirred at a frenetic pace, almost mirroring the intricate machinery that surrounded me. Alexander, ever the perceptive automaton, tilted his riveted head as if inquiring about my newfound exuberance. I paced the floorboards in a state of fervid contemplation. We must prepare immediately. If we don't seize this opportunity, then some upstart with a self-buttering toaster will walk away with all the accolades. And thus, with a heart full of dreams and a workshop full of steam, I set forth to London. I disembarked from my steam-powered carriage and beheld the grand edifice before me, the Royal Albert Hall, an architectural marvel that served as a fitting sanctum for the luminaries of invention. With Alexander at my side, his mechanical limbs clattering in harmonious dissonance with the cobblestones, I swept into the exhibition hall. A heady blend of scents greeted me, the sharp tang of freshly forged metal, the musky undertone of well-oiled machinery, and the faint yet persistent aroma of burnt toast. Flying contraptions with spinning rotors hovered above me. Steam-powered machines mimicked human motion. I stopped before a booth devoted to mechanical fish designed to swim in perfect formation. I observed them all with a discerning eye, simultaneously astounded by the scope of human creativity and yet secure in the superiority of my own invention. It was then that I encountered Doctor Quicksilver, standing before an imposing velvet curtain that concealed his mysterious endeavor. Quicksilver stood over 6 feet tall, adorned in a black trench coat and gloves, his gaze perpetually hidden behind tinted spectacles. "Ah, Lord Sidebottom," he intoned as I approached, his voice tinged with a mix of aloofness and sardonic glee. "I presume you too have come to unveil a marvel of modern engineering." "Indeed. My steam-powered exoskeleton promises to revolutionize labor and elevate the human condition." Quicksilver's lips twitched into a wry smile. "A lofty aspiration. But then, an inventor's reach should exceed his grasp, should it not? And what of your mysterious project?" I nodded towards the veiled apparatus behind him. "Is it something that will capture the imagination of the world? You shall see, or perhaps you shall not." With that, he turned away, his velvet curtain remaining resolutely closed. I rejoined Alexander, who had been contentedly squirting oil into his knee joints. The exhibition had yet to officially commence, but already the hall brimmed with murmurs and whispers. Inventors sized up their competition, eyes flitting between blueprints and displays. The atmosphere was electrifying, quite literally so, as a minor explosion erupted from the booth devoted to safe and sustainable home electricity. The grand clock above the entryway struck the hour, its chimes resonating with an almost divine authority. The crowd hushed in deference to the occasion. Sir Reginald Pomp, the esteemed overseer of the exhibition, took to the podium and, with a flourish of his embroidered handkerchief, declared the event officially open. At once the hall erupted into a cacophony of whirring gears, hissing steam, and impassioned oratory. Inventors donned their top hats and took up their positions, each eager to proselytize the virtues of their respective marvels. In one corner, the beautiful Eleanor Dashwood demonstrated her telephonic orchestra, a series of tubes and wires connected to an organ that claimed to bring music into every household. Across the hall, Professor Alastair Filtram captivated his audience with a mechanical painter that, though producing only abstract daubs, promised to liberate the art world from the fallibility of the human hand. Feeling particularly ebullient, I stationed myself by my masterpiece, the steam-powered exoskeleton. Glistening in the gaslight, it stood as a monument to human progress, an imposing blend of iron, copper, and intricate gearwork. I couldn't help but cast a smug glance at Quicksilver's still-veiled mystery. Soon enough, clusters of spectators gathered around my booth, marveling at my contraption's ability to lift weights and execute delicate tasks with unparalleled precision. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Behold the future of mechanized labor, an apparatus that augments human capabilities and promises untold prosperity. A series of loud bangs echoed from the other side of the hall. A plume of smoke unfurled from Professor Filtram's mechanical painter, now splattering paint in erratic spirals. Nearby, Miss Dashwood's telephonic orchestra let out a cacophonous wail, its tubes misfiring in an uncontrolled symphony of sound. And as if on cue, a thunderous crash resonated through the hall as the mechanical fish tank toppled over, spilling its robotic inhabitants onto the floor in a wet and rather tragic heap. Sir Reginald's face turned a shade of scarlet that clashed most dreadfully with his waistcoat. Merely minor setbacks. He waved his handkerchief as if trying to dissipate the gathering storm. Minor setbacks, I assure you. Among the disarray and confusion, I glimpsed Quicksilver standing unmoved, a solitary figure amid the chaos, his face as unreadable as one of McGonagall's so-called poems. The hall, once a temple to human ingenuity, now felt like a crucible teetering on the edge of calamity. My exoskeleton stood steadfast beside me, but for the first time I questioned the invulnerability of even my own invention. With each tick of the grand clock, the tension ratcheted ever higher, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were all pawns in a much darker game. No sooner had I pondered these uneasy thoughts than a discordant clang shattered the air. The room turned its collective gaze towards the Servitor 3000, an automaton built to serve afternoon tea. Far from delivering scones and cucumber sandwiches, it swung its silver-plated tray in erratic arcs, striking a gentleman's bowler hat clean off. Gasps punctuated the room, followed by cries of alarm as more automatons misbehaved. Mr. Diggory's automated housemaid, a contraption designed to sweep and dust, lashed out with its broom, sweeping the feet from under its inventor and spattering dust in every direction. And then, with a grim inevitability, my own steam-powered exoskeleton quivered. My heart sank as its limbs convulsed, gears grinding against their better nature. Before I could reach for the emergency stop lever, the mechanical arm seized a nearby weight and hurled it across the hall, narrowly missing Sir Reginald, who ducked just in time, his handkerchief flailing like a distressed butterfly. Attendees fled in all directions, their faces contorted in a blend of disbelief and horror. Sir Reginald tried to restore order, shouting above the tumult, but his words were lost in the bedlam. All the while, Quicksilver remained disquietingly still, seemingly immune to the havoc. Enough of this skullduggery. I grabbed the exoskeleton's emergency lever and flicked a series of switches. With a hiss of steam and the grinding of gears, the mechanical limbs came to life once more, but this time under my firm control. With a bound fueled by compressed steam, I leapt towards the rampaging Servitor 3000. My mechanical arm extended like a retractable lance, deftly plucking the menacing tray from its grasp and flinging it like a discus. It flew in a perfect arc, colliding with Mr. Diggory's automated housemaid and knocking both awry. A small crowd cheered, their spirits momentarily lifted. My gaze fell upon Mrs. Fiddleworth's clockwork canine, a mechanical dog that had forsaken fetching sticks for gnawing on chair legs. With a swift maneuver, my exoskeleton's hydraulic boot delivered a calculated punt. The automaton Pooch sailed through the air, colliding with a banner that read "The Future of Innovation," which subsequently tumbled down, ensnaring several rogue devices in its canvas embrace. Finally, I confronted the greatest menace, Sir Bartholomew's iron juggernaut, a hulking monstrosity designed for industrial excavation, but now seemed keen on excavating the audience. Mustering all the power my exoskeleton could generate, I charged. Gears whirred, metal clashed, and sparks flew as I wrestled with the mechanical behemoth. The audience looked on in awe and trepidation, their cheers tinged with the morbid fascination of watching gladiators in an arena. With a Herculean effort, I reached for the iron juggernaut's legs and pulled free a critical cable, its literal Achilles heel. The monstrosity wavered, teetered, and then toppled, crashing to the ground with a thud. The hall erupted in applause. With the rogue automatons quelled and order tentatively restored, the air within the exhibition hall grew thick with whispered theories and guarded glances. I extracted myself from the exoskeleton and dabbed the sweat from my brow. "Quite the sideshow, eh, Sidebottom?" mumbled General Thistlethwaite, a staunch advocate of military-grade gadgets. "Indeed, General, but a sideshow that suggests a puppet master." I gazed across the hall, lingering on Quicksilver, who seemed altogether unmoved by the chaos. "I dare say, old chap, if you're thinking of playing detective, I'd keep an eye on Quicksilver. Fellow's got a mind like a steel trap, and ethics as flexible as rubber." When the General made his leave, I sauntered with casual aplomb towards Quicksilver's exhibit. As I approached, Quicksilver looked up and sneered. "Lord Sidebottom, to what do I owe the honour?" "A mere dalliance of intellectual curiosity." I eyed the velvet shroud behind him. "What intriguing apparatus do you have there? Care to illuminate its purpose?" "Ah, it's still under wraps, I'm afraid. Patent pending and all that." He tapped the side of his nose. "Besides, I suspect you have more immediate concerns." "As do you, I suspect." I tipped my hat and proceeded to mingle, taking note of other inventors who behaved less than admirably amid the chaos. Madame Octavia, the creator of an intricate series of tubes designed to automate the brewing of tea, seemed overly interested in the steam conduits of other inventors. Could she be siphoning off more than just Earl Grey? And then there was Mr. Wobbleclock, whose pendulum-powered unicycles were absurdly unstable at the best of times. He had been curiously absent during the automaton rampage, only to reappear with an air of feigned innocence. With resolute determination, I strode back towards my exhibit, already drafting plans for a new invention, one that would not merely dazzle the masses, but also serve as an unmasker of truths. The game, as they say, was most assuredly afoot. The next morning dawned, and I found myself in my makeshift workshop within the exhibition hall. My latest invention, which I had affectionately dubbed the Truth Revealer Mark I, was nearing completion. As I tightened the last screws on my mechanical marvel, Alexander arrived bearing a tray of fresh scones and an envelope sealed with an ornate Q, sustenance and a side of intrigue. I eagerly broke the seal, the letter within concise. "Lord Sidebottom, intriguing happenings yesterday. Why not direct your investigative compass towards booth 33? You might find it electrifying. Best, Doctor Quicksilver." I couldn't resist the bait, and soon found myself in front of booth 33, which was curiously deserted. Upon closer inspection, I discovered a set of blueprints half hidden beneath a stack of mechanical gears, schematics for an automaton control matrix. As I pondered this, another piece of evidence nearly tripped me up. A length of wire, coated in a strange substance, lay tangled on the floor. I quickly identified it as rubber, the same material General Thistlethwaite had associated with Quicksilver's ethics. I was on the brink of declaring "case closed" when Alexander appeared again, this time with an even more perplexing item. A tarnished locket containing a photo of Doctor Quicksilver and Madame Octavia, both looking rather chummy. Scribbled on the back were the words, To my dearest Octavia, forever in cogs and gears. Madame Octavia too had access to booth 33, and a motive steeped in the dark tea of subterfuge. Was she the puppet master, pulling strings while masquerading as a mere pawn? Or was Quicksilver framing her in his game of multidimensional chess? Further clouding matters was Mr. Wobbleclock's sudden insistence that his pendulum-powered unicycles could only have been destabilized by an external control matrix. Was he too a victim? Or was this another feint in a convoluted game? Confused but not disheartened, I retreated to recalibrate my plans. The clues were as slippery as those mechanical fish, and the suspects had multiplied like rabbits. Still, the truth revealer Mark I was nearly ready, and when it was, the cloak of mystery would be lifted to reveal either a villainous visage or an innocent countenance. I chuckled at the complexity of the puzzle before me. Each clue seemed both a stepping stone and a stumbling block, each suspect a potential hero or villain. The news came like a bolt of lightning, both electrifying and terrifying, all within the confines of the exhibition hall. Her Majesty Queen Victoria would grace us with her esteemed presence. The Queen's enthusiasm for technological advancement was well known, with her mecha suit the talk of every newspaper, from Blackburn to Bombay. "You'd best polish your exoskeleton, my lord. Her Majesty isn't fond of tarnish," Alexander advised, as he meticulously folded my royal audience attire. "The exoskeleton may need to remain on standby, Alexander," I replied, attaching a fine-tuned cogwheel to the truth revealer Mark I. "Our priority must be unmasking this diabolical trickster before they can pull another fast one, especially in the presence of Her Majesty." Alexander raised a brass eyebrow. "An unenviable task, sir, given the layers of red herrings and rabbit holes we've encountered." "True, but remember, Alexander, where there are rabbit holes there are also rabbits, and rabbits eventually surface for a nibble of the truth carrot." The air was thick with anticipation as the hour of the royal visit neared. Quicksilver became increasingly elusive. Madame Octavia donned her most mysterious expression yet, and General Thistlethwaite couldn't help but pace, causing his mechanical leg to produce an unceasing, rhythmic creak. Then Sir Reginald made the grand announcement, "Her Majesty the Queen will arrive in 15 minutes." A collective gasp filled the hall. Inventors scrambled to give their booths a final spit and polish, while security doubled. "It's now or never, Alexander." I secured myself into the exoskeleton. If our malefactor aims to strike, it'll be with the grandiosity deserving of a royal audience. "Very true, sir. All eyes will be on Her Majesty, making it the perfect moment for a dastardly deed. And that is why our eyes will be everywhere else." As we waited in anticipation of Her Majesty's imminent arrival, more automatons began to misbehave. Clockwork birds, once charming the guests with their harmonic tunes, now swooped down, plucking hats off startled aristocrats. A life-sized mechanical elephant let out an ear-piercing trumpet before charging towards a group of scientists who scattered like ninepins. But the true spectacle was a gargantuan spider bot that shot webs of steel cables from its mechanical abdomen, ensnaring anything in its path. Incoming, my exoskeleton's hydraulic arm snatched a pair of shrieking socialites out of the spider bot's trajectory, setting them down as gently as the gears and pistons would allow. "Sidebottom, the Queen is arriving in 10 minutes. We mustn't let her witness this chaos," Sir Reginald shouted over the cacophony, his moustache trembling in a most un-British manner. "More than enough time." My exoskeleton's gears whirred as I lunged at the elephant, using my mechanical arms to restrain its tusks. A twist of a lever and a well-aimed burst of steam later, the colossal beast shuddered to a halt. I couldn't help but chuckle. It seems I've tamed the beast. But even as the elephant powered down, I could hear the ominous whirring of more automatons joining the fray. My eyes darted around the room. Time was of the essence, and yet it seemed the malicious force behind these machinations had saved the worst for last. I set my jaw, determined that the Queen would walk into a showcase of British ingenuity, not a battlefield of clockwork calamities. As I turned, I saw Quicksilver standing eerily close to another automaton, which was busy wreaking havoc at the patent medicine booth. A torrent of hot vapor shot from my palm, enveloping the rogue machine and rendering its gears and circuits useless. It slumped to the floor, a defeated jumble of metal. With a blast of steam, I rocketed towards Madame Octavia's booth, where a giant mechanical octopus had sprung to life, its tentacles flailing menacingly. "Ah, so you thought you could distract us with a second wave, did you?" With pinpoint accuracy, I ensnared the octopus, pulling it crashing down in a tangle of tentacles and deceit. I turned back to Quicksilver, but the man had vanished. The smoke of fallen automatons and the smell of spent gunpowder filled the air, creating an intoxicating cocktail of victory and intrigue. I bounded over to Quicksilver's booth and tore back the velvet curtain to reveal his invention, a clockwork monstrosity. A tangle of brass gears, springs and tubes that looked as if a pocket watch had made love to a kraken. He sneered at me. "Ah, Lord Sidebottom, it appears you've tracked down the source of your mechanical inconveniences." "Inconveniences, you vile cur," he just smiled. "Your contraptions have sown chaos, endangered lives, and made a right mess of the carpet. A trifling matter, considering the greater good my invention will serve." He flicked a switch on his strange contraption. "You see, Lord Sidebottom, the world is in desperate need of a new order, an order only achievable through chaos." "And what, pray tell, is your role in this newfound order?" "A puppet master, orchestrating chaos from the comfort of his parlor." "A visionary," he snapped, pressing another button, sending a signal to the remaining rogue automatons. They whirred and clicked, converging towards us. "A harbinger of the future. I've had enough of your pseudo-intellectual babble, Quicksilver. Your future ends here." I engaged the exoskeleton's Duchess of Queensberry function. My augmented fist rocketed toward the control panel of his invention, smashing it to bits in a shower of sparks and steam. With a shriek of metal, the rogue automatons ground to a halt. Quicksilver staggered back. The room hung silent as Sir Reginald announced, "Her Majesty, the Queen." The Queen marched towards Quicksilver's booth, her eyes narrowing. "Well, Dr. Quicksilver, it seems your plans have gone awry." "Your reign of mechanical terror is over, Doctor," I added. Quicksilver looked around, his eyes darting between my triumphant grin and Her Majesty's stern visage. "This isn't over, Sidebottom. Progress is unstoppable. Order and chaos are but two sides of the same coin. I suggest you ponder that in your cell, where the only thing you'll be spinning are your wheels." Queen Victoria nodded approvingly. "Brilliant work, Lord Sidebottom. You've not only saved the exhibition, but also preserved the sanctity of British innovation." "Thank you, Your Majesty." I bowed as gallantly as the exoskeleton would allow. It's all in a day's work for a gentleman. Just as the constables moved to escort Dr. Quicksilver away, there was a hiss of steam and a clanking of gears. Quicksilver's trenchcoat fell away, revealing his own steam-powered marvel, a dark, brass-clad mechanical exoskeleton adorned with an array of sinister-looking contraptions. "Ah, did you think you were the only man of vision, Sidebottom? Behold the future. Very well, let us dance." With that, our exoskeletons clashed, a symphony of hydraulics, metal, and steam. We were like two knights of old, if knights were equipped with steam jets and rocket fists. "I must say, Quicksilver, your exoskeleton is impressively engineered." I ducked a saw blade ejected from his forearm. "Of course it is. I designed it myself." He deflected a series of blows from my swinging fists. "That's where you erred, my good man. True genius lies in collaboration." I activated my exoskeleton's tea time function, which promptly spewed a jet of scalding Darjeeling towards him. "Ah, tea?" Quicksilver howled as the steam clouded his visor, his movements faltering. "Ah, you forget, tea is our secret weapon." I grinned, seizing the opportunity to aim my mega punch function at a critical junction in his suit's hydraulics. With an immense crash, his exoskeleton buckled and collapsed, its steam vents releasing a final defeated whistle. Just as the constables swarmed around Quicksilver, his eyes flickered towards me and he smirked. "You think you've won, Sidebottom? This is far bigger than you or even Her Majesty could possibly fathom." "Oh, do enlighten us," I said, my curiosity piqued. "What could possibly justify this devilish escapade?" "Pah!" Quicksilver spat on the floor. "I'll never tell you." I fired up the Truth Revealer Mark I and aimed it at his head. Speak, man." Quicksilver's expression slackened. "My dear Lord Sidebottom, your little island is brimming with inventive marvels, ingenuity wasted on patriotic drivel and afternoon tea parties. Can you imagine the fortunes to be had if these innovations were, say, available to the highest bidder? You mean to say you plan to sell British inventions to foreign powers, sabotage our own exhibition to discredit the inventors? You're quicker than your name suggests. Once the public's trust in local inventors was shattered, I'd swoop in, secure the blueprints, and make my way to far more appreciative and lucrative shores." The room fell into stunned silence, broken only by the Queen herself. "Dr. Quicksilver, you are not only a menace to these good people, but a traitor to your country." "Country? Ha! My allegiance is to progress and profit." It was then that a cadre of inventors from the exhibition advanced, each holding a miniature invention that they'd managed to cobble together amid the chaos. A flash of light, a puff of smoke, and suddenly Quicksilver found himself bound by a collection of tiny, but remarkably strong mechanical cuffs, a marvel of impromptu engineering. Quicksilver glared, his defeat palpable. "This isn't the end, Sidebottom. Progress cannot be stopped." "But you can and have been." As the room erupted in cheers, Queen Victoria stepped forth, clearly entertained but maintaining her regal composure. "Lord Sidebottom, you have once again proven the indomitable spirit of British ingenuity, and of course the invaluable utility of tea." Quicksilver's fallen exoskeleton smoked behind him as he was finally led away, this time conclusively beaten and noticeably damp. "You may have won this round, Sidebottom, but the war I cut in is best left to those who can appreciate a good cuppa." With a nod to Her Majesty and a last chuckle, I powered down my exoskeleton. As the attendees resumed their exploration of the exhibition, now safe from rogue automatons and mad scientists alike, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. After all, it's not every day you get to defeat a villain, impress a queen, and uphold the virtues of British engineering. Indeed, this had been an exhibition for the ages, and as for my steam-powered exoskeleton, well, let's just say it had proven to be the toast of more than just the engineering world. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future tales. Lord Sidebottom and the Quicksilver Quandary is copyright 2023.